Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fringe Coverage. This podcast profiles the stories, swings, and stars of the LPGA Tour. And whether you're new to women's golf or a longtime fan, hopefully this podcast helps you develop your own rooting interests in women's professional golf. And Tom, today we are joined by a very special guest. I cannot contain my excitement. He's a co-founder and owner of the incredibly popular and successful golf media company and our favorite podcast, No Laying Up. And most important to me, he is the lead voice for NLU's coverage of the LPGA. Beyond golf, you can catch him on the Trap Draw podcast, where you can hear more about his love for Joey Votto, his relatively newfound love of dogs, and as he recently revealed on the Annual Goals podcast, his interest in rollerblading. Phil Landis, aka Big Randy, welcome and thank you for joining us on Fringe Coverage. How are you doing today?
Well, fantastic. I mean, an introduction like that, how could I not? That's very generous. Appreciate you guys having me on, and really just appreciate you guys starting and getting this show up off the ground and running and building consistency, building an audience. You know, that's always the hardest thing for any podcast, but I just think it's great to have more voices, more places to turn to listen and learn and have fun around women's professional golf. So, yeah, thank you for having me on.
Well, we cannot thank you enough for joining us, and don't worry, we're not going to embarrass you today. We did that off air. As an aside, Randy, I am a huge proponent of rollerblading. You want to talk anything about rollerblading, I can tell you. Everything. I've been made fun of for a long time. I have stood steadfast in my desire to rollerblade and my ability to rollerblade. So I highly endorse that goal for you for 2026.
Well, I can report some breaking news here. I actually went out yesterday afternoon for the very first time. Mark, I don't know how old you are. I have not been on a pair of rollerblades. I'm 42. I mean, I was thinking it's got to be about 30 years since I've been on a pair of blades, but I got some. I went out. There's a nice park not too far from where I live. The weather was a little warm yesterday, and so I ended up going about 5 miles, half hour.
Yeah.
There were times where I felt a little shaky, but man, once you kind of get in that rhythm and the legs and the arms are working together, it was a nice workout, and it was a nice just excuse to be outside. So I've long stopped trying to be cool, and I feel like I don't need any of that. So I'm just embracing things I want to do and happy to be on the blades.
That's fantastic. Are we talking wrist guards, elbows?
I did wear. That's a great question, Tom. Definitely, I wore a helmet. That's going to be. Don't trust myself enough to never not wear a helmet. I did throw on the wrist guards. That's the last thing I need right now in my life is a broken wrist or a broken arm.
Absolutely.
Now, did you invest in all of this in what? Like, did you go buy wrist guards, helmet, rollerblade? Did you have a bike helmet that you just threw on? What'd we do here?
Yeah, I had the bike helmet, but had to invest in everything else. I think, and I'm sure somebody in your audience can spot check me if I'm wrong about this, but from my research, I ended up buying a pair of size 15 rollerblades, and I feel like there's really one place on the internet in the world to get rollerblades that large. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger. There wasn't much like shopping around to be done for me. And yeah, went ahead and got the protective guards. I ordered some like knee pads and elbow pads, but I was like, you know what? I don't think I need those. So I think I'll roll with the wrist guards for a little bit longer though.
And
that's
dare
fantastic.
I ask how go ahead, Tom.
As somebody who wants to, like, you know, I just turned 40 and I'm very conscious about, like, I want to go try Pilates and yoga, but I don't just want to be like the only guy in the class. But you know what? Just why not go out there and do something that you want to try?
Tom, that's been me. I've done yoga classes where I'm the only guy. I'm quite clearly the most beginner of it. I just think go for it. I think there's charm and there's fun in putting yourself out there, trying new things, being a little vulnerable. I hope you're doing that. Don't let embarrassment or the threat of embarrassment stop you.
I will do that.
All right. I swear, last rollerblading question. Randy, how tall are you on blades?
Well, my wife thinks I have to be over 7 foot. So I'm like 6'8" in with just, no shoes on. So I got to think, I haven't measured the wheels themselves.
You got at least 4 or 5 inches.
I think so. Yeah. So I'm close to 7 foot. I'm quite a sight. I'm going to be quite a sight around. If anybody's out in Washington Park in Denver, look for the extremely tall person blading.
Keep an eye out, folks. Yeah. I'm 41. I have size 14 shoe. I last time I bought blades was probably 20 years ago, right before I met my girlfriend, now wife of quite a long time. Let's just say I hid it for a little bit from her because I wasn't really sure how that was going to play in the dating scene of, I blade on the weekends, because I also would say blade like it was a cool thing.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm leaning into the dorkiness of it.
Heck yeah, man.
My NLU buddies, some other college buddies have been giving me a proper amount of grief. But all in good fun. Mark, let me ask you maybe one question that I need to research, but maybe you know it. How often do I need to rotate the blades or the wheels on my rollerblades?
More than I ever did. Let's put it that. I don't think. First off, it depends on how much you're using them, right? Because it's the wear and tear you're putting on them. I went a year without doing it, and you could. I mean, I think the rule of thumb is if you see it, you're probably a little late on it, but just do it then. Like if you start seeing wear, because you're going to find out real fast how much you bow your legs, and like the inside wheels are going to get worn a lot.
Yeah.
So if you're rollerblading once a week, I don't know, I'm making up whatever your desire is here. You got at least a year before you really need to worry about it.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. Okay.
If you're falling, it's not because the wheels need to be rotated. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. User error.
Well, hey, great podcast. That's all we wanted to talk about.
Get the important stuff out of the way.
Not what you probably thought you were going to do when you said yes to Fringe coverage on an LPGA is talk about your rollerblading future. Well, let's start here, Randy. I mentioned this at in the very first episode. I called out no laying up for being the impetus behind this. Is I'm a lifelong golf fan. Always grew up watching the PGA Tour because candidly, that's what was on TV. So never had much exposure to the Women's Tour. Knew the names, right? With the Nancy Lopez's and Annika Sorenstams and Michelle Wies over the years. But it wasn't until COVID and your coverage specifically of the 2021 Solheim Cup where I started getting more exposed to the current day LPGA Tour. At the risk of using an overused term, I really liked, while I didn't love the product at the time from a television perspective, I really liked the fact that they were using all 14 clubs in their bag, and they seemed to be playing the golf courses in a way that the golf courses were designed, and having to hit long irons and trying to hold greens in a way that, again, the driver and flip wedge on the PGA Tour, while a skill in itself, was not necessarily as appealing to me. And the more I watched, the more I became hooked on some of the stories, and that's all credit to what you and your colleagues on No Laying Up have started and continued on the LPGA side. So first off, thank you for giving me a new hobby and interest for a guy who I've grown up playing sports my whole life, and I was not looking for a new sport to follow. So if that's not a compliment, I don't know what is I got hooked on something I wasn't looking for. So first off, thank you. But secondly, and kind of getting into the meat of this is, what were the circumstances or factors that led you to become interested in the LPGA?
Great question. And that's wonderful to hear about your journey to the women's game. I honestly think mine's somewhat similar. I guess I'll preface it by saying golf in my family was really passed down and started with my dad's mother. So my grandmother was the biggest golfer I knew when I was a small child. And I can remember going up, they lived in Northwest Ohio, and, we'd go up there and spend time with them. And there were weeks when I'd kind of go up to grandparents' camp on my own. And it was always, she would consistently take me out to the Napoleon golf course in Napoleon, Ohio. And it was this 9-hole regulation course. And when I was old enough to hit some shots out there with her and eventually, played 9 holes with her, it was just fantastic. There was a putt course there. And so I guess I say all that, in not that like my grandma's the reason I got into women's golf, but I feel like just my exposure and how the game has found me in my personal life started with a woman. I think that's cool. And so fast forward many, many years, like I can remember tuning in and watching a random like U.S. Women's Open here and there, or maybe a women's Open Championship here or there. But it wasn't like I was watching it, certainly. Even, I mean, gosh, even in my 20s, 30s, so I'm a relative newbie to the women's game. I guess I say all that. I don't have like this deep institutional knowledge, which I think is part of the charm, right? There's this whole league, there's this whole history that exists for me to dive into and explore and learn more about, which is appealing. And then I think you nailed it a little bit with just I by watching the women play more and more, and then through our job at No Laying Up, eventually getting to go to an LPGA tournament, getting to do some content with the players themselves, like it just dawns on me, like we're hitting the same clubs pretty much. We're trying to plot our way around the golf course in a pretty similar manner. I think by and large, play with Lauren Coughlin. I've played with Madeline Sagstrom. I've played pro-ams with a handful of other women, and it's like, oh my gosh, like we're we're playing the same game here, if you will, right? Like the yardages, the clubs, etc. And I just feel like that built a relatability for me. I joke that like when I watch the men's game, or on the more rare occasions when I've played with professional men, it's like, man, they're just playing a different sport.
Yeah.
Like the distances, the athleticism, the ball speed, like it's just I that's not the golf I play. Like it's impressive in its own right, but from a relatability standpoint, I think I was attracted to the women's game. And then I'll say lastly, like just professionally, especially when No Laying Up was starting out, the PGA Tour was much more restrictive in the access and what they would allow us to do, not only like during tournament weeks, but even with players when they weren't in tournaments. And so it was like, you just heard no a lot, and, you guys can't do this, you can't do that. To their credit, they've gotten a lot better in the last couple of years. They've kind of been forced to do that. But I juxtapose that with the LPGA Tour from the jump was like, hey, we had an idea. We'd like to do, oh my gosh, we would love that. How can we help? And so, I think it's human nature. You have this organization and a group of people over here that are so thankful that you're giving attention and creating content around the game. Like it just feels good. It was fun to go to events. And I will say the more events you go to, the more players, caddies, you get to know the folks that work for the LPGA Tour. Like it has more of a kind of traveling circus in a good way. It's feels much more like a group of people moving from location to location. There's a romanticism maybe there that I equate to like, maybe this is kind of what the PGA Tour used to feel like back in the 70s or 80s or something. So I feel like it's been a lot of those factors that have just, and I guess, sorry, if I could just throw one more on top, the splintering of the men's game, and just kind of growing to be like, what are we doing over here? It's just kind of been a little off-putting. And so, I just feel like all those things, the LPGA Tour, it's just another kind of open grass new thing in the world of professional golf, and their players to get to know, their stories to get to know. And then, as much as you can watch it on TV and go in person, like I think that the TV product's got a little ways to go to really come up to par. But I just think if you love golf and you're not giving the women's game a shot, I think you there's a chance you're missing out on something. So that's a very long rambling answer, Mark and Tom. I'm sorry, but that's, I've spent a little bit of time myself just thinking about like my journey to women's golf, and that's as best as I can summarize it, maybe.
I think that all that was very well said. One of the things that drew me, and I assume Mark as well, to the LPGA was the accessibility. right? I didn't know much about the LPGA going into this venture with Mark, but being able to reach out to somebody like Grant Boone and them just being so accommodating, right? And you go on message boards and people are willing to accept you. You don't need to know all the history. You don't need to have seen Ben Hogan swing a golf club or Stan Musial swing a baseball bat. Like I couldn't ever reach out to Joe Buck and ask him like, "Hey, can I have a minute of your time?" Grant Boone is accessible, and so is the LPGA in general. And something like that, I think, really endears the fans to the product, and that's hopefully something that will continue to grow with the new broadcast. We got high hopes for this upcoming. Hopefully, they'll keep getting bigger and better.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because I felt at certain points over the last several years, there are times when, like, if we're being honest, it can be a little difficult to be a fan of the women's game just because of the TV broadcast, and you never quite know, is it going to be tape delayed, is it going to be live? The by and large, the production quality is not anywhere near it is with what you get when you turn into a men's event. And so it can be challenging, but I think in a weird way, there's also a bit of, if you do dive in and if you do dig in, it's like, well, it's not an oversaturated market or a league, right? And so you can kind of form your own opinions, make your own judgments. That's where I say it's kind of green grass a little bit. You can come up with your own bits and jokes, and I think in the content game, like, that's nice. That's not, most of these other professional leagues are so well covered. It's like there's not really any new ground to cover a lot of times. But I do feel like the women's game, there's ample opportunity.
And especially if you look at, with the new commissioner there, it kind of gives them the opportunity to paint with a broad brush, right? Of like, you have a lot of opportunity to make some changes, get weird with it. There's been some announcements today of the women getting into the TGL space, and I'm sure we'll talk about a couple other things, but I'm curious, over this time that you've started covering the LPGA regularly, from where you started to where you are now, how has your perception of the tour evolved? And whether it is the preconceived notions you had coming in, or just what has surprised you in your journey and what has changed during that time?
That's a great question. So when I really started to get into and covering the LPGA Tour, Mike Wan was the commissioner, and I feel like you can't talk to anybody that doesn't say glowing things about Mike Wan and his tenure. And so I think my first exposure to, let's say, the LPGA Tour specifically was this burgeoning organization with wonderful leadership, and there was just you could feel the energy, right? It felt like it was really building, and that was exciting. I think what I've learned as a fan, I would like that building to happen sooner, right? Yeah. We talk about broadcasts, we talk about some other pet issues, maybe course setup and schedule, right? Does the schedule make sense? And I think my thing was like, oh my gosh, these tweaks or these opportunities for the tour, they seem so apparent to me. Like, why aren't we making these changes straight away? Mike Wan departs for the USGA. They bring in his successor, Molly Marcoux Samaan. And I think for the first time in my experience with the league, then it was like, we lost a little bit of momentum. And while I liked Molly, I got to spend some time with Molly. It seemed like she just wasn't, I think it was tough to fill Mike Wan's shoes, and just her personality and the way she went about things were in such contrast to Mike Wan that it just, I think the players never fully bought in. And so, I think I say that it was like this excitement. This is great. I think the women's game could do this, this, and this. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't we seeing progress in a lot of these areas? And so there's some frustration too. That's where I said earlier, like at times I was like, man, it's hard to be a fan of this league and this game. Like, why don't you guys make it easier for us? And so I feel like it's swung back a little bit now with Craig Kessler, the new commissioner. We got the news of they're going to make an investment Golf Channel and some partners to make the broadcast better, more cameras, more microphones, every round showed live, no tape delay. And I think that's exciting. And I think Commissioner Kessler has, I would suspect too, the 2026 schedule looks pretty much the same as what we've seen, but I suspect 2027 is going to be markedly different. And I have a renewed confidence that he recognizes and is going to tackle some of these broader issues that I think, if done well, can help grow interest in the LPGA Tour and quite honestly make it a more enjoyable fan experience. So yeah, I feel like in let's call it 7, 8 years, 9 years, have kind of run the gambit a little bit. But I do feel like right now we're back in a spot where like it seems like there's some optimism and we're on a good path again.
Well, and I'm sure you have felt this at some points too, as two people who as a hobby have decided we want to try to bring more attention to this game. There are times I don't want to tell people about it because there's a lack of pride in product, right? And not necessarily our product, but just, hey, you're going to turn on a broadcast that the acoustics are weird. There's not a lot of fans around the green, so you're missing a fan element. There's so many things that go into it, and just the quality of the production it's not mailed in. It's just very basic, and there's a certain number of cameras and tower shots and kind of a lack of depth, I guess, to what that broadcast looks like. But when I find myself in like this cycle of like, okay, I want to just tell everyone about this, and like, oh, but if that's their first experience and interaction with this sport, if that was me, would I want to come back? Like, you're only going to get people's attention for so long. And if this is it, back to the other leagues we all know and love, of whether you're looking at NFL, NBA, even the WNBA, like there's just, there's something lacking. And something you guys have said for a long time has been, you look at someone like the WNBA, they put themselves in a position that by the time they got Caitlin Clark, they were ready for that moment, right? They were ready they had the infrastructure, they had the television partners, they had those things. So when she came, they were ready and they didn't get caught with their pants. I mean, what do we do now, right? And, I think that LPGA has already seen a lot of talent come and go, and some that's already there that maybe they're already missing their moment with some of these, the amazing talent that's there. And I'm curious, this is a bit of a contextual question for you, given we mentioned we started this podcast in July of last year. Think about the season we decided to start talking about women's golf, right? So you come a year removed from Nelly taking over the world, right? Winning 7 times, including a major. Tom comes in July. We're already midway through the streak that becomes historic in terms of first-time winners on the LPGA and unique winners on the LPGA. When you look at, Tom and I have had a lot of discussions about whether that's good or bad for the tour, and I'm sure you have as well. And we talk it specifically as it relates to us and building an audience. My line has been, I like the parity if you can guarantee me it doesn't happen again. Because what it does for this year is it allowed Tom to see all sorts of storylines and people he otherwise, Nelly would have soaked up a lot of the oxygen in year one, which again, for golf, I think the three of us know that was great for the LPGA, and we would have loved to seen some more momentum. Again, she didn't play bad golf. There was just a lot of competition this year. As long as that doesn't happen next year, I'm okay with it having happened, because now the Miyu Yamashitas and Ryo Takedas and you go down the list of all those people that won in 2025 has set us up to have a really robust discussion and now see who is the cream, because I'm not sure I know who the cream is. Right. All of that as a backdrop, I'm kind of asking how, if you look at 2025 and now forecasting to 2026, what are your takeaways from 2025 and what are your hopes for 2026?
It's a great question. It's a great question. I mean, let's just tackle them. I agree with you in the sense that, like, to a certain extent, having all these new first-time winners, and by and large, that they're young women coming from all corners of the globe. Like, that's a good thing. I think that's a solid foundation. But you do need some standout players. You need people that the casual or the first time audience can latch onto and say, that's the best player. And I know everybody else is trying to chase that person. And So I think what I'm most excited for 2026 is Gino Titicum and the potential to see where she goes from here, right? She obviously won the CME for the second straight year. She ended up winning 3 times, which led all LPGA Tour players. She's 22 years old. I think she turns 23 this February, so another month from now. And the floor of her game is so exceptionally high that I do think it just feels like there should be another gear where she starts winning at a clip that becomes like a Nelly Corda winning 7 times in a season, right? I just think we're going to get to the point where Gino, she's got to win a major, right? That's kind of the next big thing that she needs to check off for her career resume. But if she can break through in a major and she can start converting all of these top 10s into more wins, I think that gives the women's game a bona fide superstar. And I think, you never know. And I know the ages, the careers it's a much different calculus on the women's side than on the men's side. But I just look at her, I'm like, okay, she's 22. She's had all this success already. If she starts winning majors and if she starts putting together 6, 7, 8 win seasons, I think we're talking about maybe the best player of kind of this generation and somebody that could be number 1 in the world for quite a long time, right? I'm not saying necessarily she's going to do that, but I think the possibility is there, and that excites me. I think she could be the bona fide superstar over the next 3, 4, 5 plus years. So I look to her. I said in our actual podcast earlier this week, I'm like, it's a big 2026 for her just because of the possibilities that exist if she has a monster season. So I think that's number 1. I think right below that for me is Nelly Corda and how she responds to a season that she did not win, which is mind-boggling, right? When everybody else seemingly was winning, Nelly Corda not winning. I just can't believe it. And coming off the 2024 where she won 7 times, part of what makes the Gino ascent fun is like, all right, Nelly, I want to see you have somebody to chase now, right? Like you have somebody clearly that has separated from, at least in world ranking points. I want to see the response from Nelly Corda. So that's right up there. I think below that, how will we saw such an infusion of Japanese talent, your Yamashita's, Takeda, the EY twins. How do they follow up these breakthroughs? What does 2026 look like for them? And I think you could say that about a number of Korean women too. I think obviously the talent from South Korea is deep. They're names we know. They're names I think we're going to become more familiar with. So I don't know. I at the risk of just like keeping going, I'll
Sure.
stop there and maybe let you guys react. But that's kind of top of mind for me from a competition standpoint. And then I think in the background of all that, we have Commissioner Kessler and how he's going to position the tour and the product and the schedule starting in 2027, I think is also going to be somewhat of a big storyline this year.
I would assume that the tour would really love to be able to push a rivalry with the top 2 players. Like every, commercial break leading up to the tournament, you just say, we got Nelly and Gino going head to head this weekend, tune in. And that would be, that's the pie in the sky dream, right? We really would love to have somebody like that because, to speak in NFL terms, right? Like you have the NFC South where everyone's just kind of the same and no one's really standing out and becoming,
right.
One of the powerhouses. That's not as exciting. We want to see who the best is and we want to see people knock them down or, have the evil empire rise and still be able to beat everybody. That's what keeps things compelling for me.
I think that's right. I mean, I don't think the formula is too tricky in golf. You need a great player or a couple great players, and people gravitate towards true greatness. And then there's fun. I think other people enjoy watching. Okay, can people knock off those great players? And so, yeah, we just need some consistent greatness and winning, right, from the Nellies and Genos, and I don't think we're far off, but that's my hope as well, Tom.
I think we've got, I mean, what's crazy, and I know you know this, like Gino won 3 times and yet had a major ripped from her by my favorite golf finish of all time with Grace Kim at the Evian. Like truly, I challenge anyone to find me a better finish to a golf tournament than that finish. And a 4-putt at Kroger away from having 5 wins.
That's right.
Like this is like Gino's season, and that speaks nothing of all of the seconds and top 5s, and made all but 1 cut. Like you said it best. Like her floor is unreal, right? Her floor is a top 15, and that might be conservative.
Yeah, well, and I'd throw in the Saudi Ladies International, which is not an LPGA event, but Gino won that last year, which is a big deal in the women's game. So you're right. That finish to Evian was just crazy. I mean, I think we're viewing Gino's 2025 much differently if even she has 4 wins and one of those is a major. I still just can't believe Grace Kim chipped in.
The chip in. It's funny. People want to talk about the 2 eagles. No, the birdie's the shot. After she inexplicably throws it in the water.
Right. We won't see another finish like that, I think, in our lives on either tour, I don't think. That's, I know. Like in an ideal world, I would love to see Gino come out and win the Chevron and just kind of plant the stake and all right, ladies, here it is. come chase me, because this is what it's going to be. But we'll see. I know I'm getting ahead of myself there.
I have a few questions for you later, specifically about the majors, but I'm curious. We've talked a lot about the current state of the tour, some of the things that have been announced with the schedule changes, which look, they made some intuitive changes that people don't necessarily realize the back end of. You can't just move an event if event organizers who are independent have always had this date in this part of their community at this time. There's a lot of moving parts for them to make simple changes like, oh wow, them 2 Michigan events are actually back to back this year, or just doing some intuitive stuff. They have to have some willing partners along the way. But I'm curious, what are the things that are going to have to happen? Again, take this and use your just general sports fan lens, right? The golf is different, right? Whether it's men's or women's, it's different than everything else. It is relatively niche compared to some of these mainstream sports that we always compare them to, which is probably unfair in that regard. This isn't necessarily a commissioner for the day question. It's more a matter of, as you look at the current state of the LPGA, what are the key things going forward that are going to have to happen for the LPGA to take off? Like, what does the scale and success look like in your mind?
It's a good question. I guess I'll preface all this by saying I don't know if you can do anything organizationally to really make it take off. Like, it's going to have to come in concert with superstar players being great on the golf course. For sure. So let's just leave that side of it alone. But organizationally, the place I start with the schedule, you guys may disagree, and please tell me if you do, but I think it's too long. They play actual tournaments in 11 of the 12 months of the calendar year. I just think that's simply too much. And you kind of get this start at the end of January in Orlando, but then they immediately go to Asia. And so, like, your next domestic event is late March, mid-March. It's just a weird start to the season. So I feel like it's hard to drum up excitement when you're beginning a season. And I think that's important for any league, right? You want fans to, I think by playing less, let fans miss it. Like, go away, have a bigger off season, let people, do their other things. And then when it's time for the LPGA Tour again, I guess my hope is, or my theory would be, there's more excitement for it to come back because it's been away longer. So I don't know what I, I don't have all the answers or I wouldn't be sitting here, but I don't know if that means I think I'm fine if we're starting the season in January. There's no reason why we got to be playing real golf tournaments late September, October, November, right? So maybe we're looking at more like the PGA schedule where it's January to Labor Day. I think that would make a lot of sense. As it currently stands, like I said, they make this Asian trip in February, early March, and then they go back again in the fall. I don't know if there's a way to kind of make one Asian swing, right? I think the LPGA is a bit different than the PGA Tour in that the LPGA is more international, both with the events already on the calendar and with the amount of top international talent in the game. And so this is pie in the sky, but in an ideal world, it's almost like, could we start the season down under in Australia, the women's Australian Open, right? Play down there. Then you swing up through Asia. And then maybe we're hitting the West Coast of the United States in March, April. And then we're kind of flowing through, a pretty typical, at least American golf season. That would be one idea. I just think somehow they got to figure out a way to not play tournaments in 11 of 12 months. So I think you got to condense the schedule. If that means getting rid of some events, I think that's okay. Honestly, like there's some that I wouldn't mind taking a Sharpie to and just getting rid of them. I also think
you'll probably have more women wanting to play every tournament.
Right.
They don't need to take a break because the schedule's so grueling.
I think that's right. I think that's right. You're going to see all the best top players together. I think the other thing, thank God we're getting an improved broadcast product. The proof will be in the pudding, but I am very cautiously optimistic. So I think that's a big step towards, building fan interest and building the profile of the league. They have to, as part of that, or honestly, where we sit with podcasts, they got to figure out a way to tell the stories of the top players a little bit better. Not only the Americans, but as best they can, the foreign players, because I get that it's not the easiest thing to sell, a Ronnie Yin or, I'm just pulling some names out to an American audience.
Or even Gino for that matter. Yeah.
Or even Gino, right? There are some hurdles there, which I don't want to just totally discount. But I think they can do a better job, right, of telling stories and kind of placing historical context, help us understand the environment, the playing environment, who are the ones to watch, who are the up and comers, who are the veterans, just kind of explaining that a little bit better, I think would go a long ways. What else? I think the LPGA is really uniquely positioned to take some chances. And this may never happen either, but I think the LPGA, if I were in charge of it, I would say, hey, listen, guys, I think everybody thinks golf is slow and boring. Casual fans, it just does not move fast. And we're not going to play speed golf on the LPGA Tour, but I think there's a chance to make the LPGA Tour to kind of connect, whether it's a shot clock, but there's going to be a pace to our game, right? It's going to be a little faster. We're not going to have 5.5, 6 hour rounds. Like, I think that is just the death of in-person experience, especially.
Right.
But I think it bleeds to the television product because they just don't have that many cameras. They can't cut to all these different parts of the golf course. So there's a lot of just dead, stale airtime on the broadcast. I think the players have to play faster. I would not be opposed to a shot clock. And then I think they're also uniquely positioned to take advantage of golf courses around the world that the men's game simply cannot go to. And I understand they need these golf courses. There are two parties to this. But I just think, man, if the LPGA could develop a brand that it's quick golf and we're playing historically relevant venues that largely you're not going to see the men play, I think that's a good place to start. I think that's attractive to casual golf fans.
Sign me up for that.
And having said all that, I know it's a lot harder, and there are contracts, and there's a million reasons why I think, that those probably can never happen, but that's where I start.
One of the things I've been mentioning the last few weeks is I think it'd be really beneficial to get like a full swing style docu-series on the LPGA. I don't know how feasible that is. Probably a lot of moving parts to that, but I think that the tournament would benefit greatly from the fans and even non-fans just learning the names and learning the backgrounds of some.
100%. I think that could only help. I also think, in terms of what else could the LPGA do to kind of separate itself from the other professional golf leagues, PGA Tour mainly, would be, why can't there be I know they're not like currently full-time partnered with ESPN Plus, but my dream would be like, okay, let's say it's any old tournament. You can watch the main broadcast on Golf Channel, and then on ESPN Plus, we're going to have a feed or two where the caddies are totally mic'd up, and it's just the audio of this player and her caddy playing around a golf. I know the players are a little bit hesitant to do stuff like that, but man, the more you can kind of let fans inside the ropes, behind the scenes, give us put us in the moment more. I think it just, I feel like that's the stuff that's interesting. I just think the LPGA Tour, I would love to see them take chances because they're small enough, they're nimble enough. It's not as high stakes as the PGA Tour with all their partners. Like, try stuff. Even if some stuff doesn't work, I would like to see them try a lot more stuff.
Well, and to that point,
I really appreciate alternate broadcasts. Like Monday Night Football, I watch Peyton and Eli because I like the interviews. I like them watching a sporting event live and then interviewing people who have a relationship to this, either a former player or a celebrity who's a fan of it or something like that. I would, if let's say one of the golfers finished early in the morning after their round, why don't they jump on the broadcast and just talk about the course they just played? Now, it's probably not going to be the people finishing at the end, right? Those are probably going to be the better scores, but just to even get some more personalities out there on the broadcast, I think it'd be pretty helpful.
So, and I'll tell you, there are a number of women that I think would be great in that role. They need the opportunity, and I feel like they need the infrastructure to put them in a place to succeed like that. But yeah, I think of when Mickelson used to jump on a broadcast.
It's the best.
Just hearing, his personality, his knowledge. He knows every player. He knows the shots on the golf course. Like, you can do that on the women's side.
So you mentioned the LPGA needs to take some swings and chances, and even earlier you mentioned kind of like it is kind of fertile ground for it's not oversaturated. I think there need to be some swings taken by non-LPGA organizations as well on the LPGA, right? People to take some chances, because whether it's from an investment side, we talked about, right? Whether it's the TrackMans and Golf Channels and FMs of the world that are saying, hey, we realize that there's a chance to elevate this product. I think people have to take a chance on the LPGA as well, because one thing that I've always thought interesting about specifically women's golf is there have been knocks. Look, we're three guys talking about women's sports, right? Let's get ahead of that, right? Like, let's be very clear. This doesn't make us experts on women's sports, but what I do know is there was a knock forever on the WNBA is they don't dunk, all they do is shoot, and it's boring fundamentals. And I know, Randy, you're a basketball head at heart.
I am.
But golf, first of all, the game has its own intricacies on the basketball side, but golf, I truly believe the only reason the LPGA is not popular is because it was never given the chance to be. The only reason I grew up knowing Corey Pavin and Fred Couples and Steve Stricker or whoever was because it was on TV every week. I was watching Dottie Pepper and Laura Davies every now and then, but I don't think I could name anyone else from that era. But I don't think it's because the quality of talent. Like, yes, the men hit the ball further and the bomb and gouge, but they're still playing this elevated sense of golf. Like, it is still the same sport at its core. Again, removing your very astute observation that, like, hey, the men kind of make it look like an entirely different sport. Women's golf just needs the opportunity for the exposure, and I think someone's going to have to take that swing and put them there, because I don't think Nelly needs to do much more than she's already doing. I think when she and LeBron James are having back and forth on social media, that's only good. When she starts transcending LPGA fandom, right, and starts getting her name into the ecosystem of other pop culture, that only helps. But only so many people are allowing that to happen. And I think there might be this misconception like women's golf is boring. Women's golf is the exact same as men's golf. There's just more people currently watching men's golf because there's much more put into men's sports from a resource perspective. I'm curious, do you see, you've been a lot closer to this, right? You've spent time doing radio for AIG. There's been a lot of, are you seeing not necessarily a groundswell, but are you seeing people invest more from the outside? Is there more attention coming to the LPGA? Does it feel stagnant to you? What are you seeing in 2025, now 2026?
Okay. That's a great question. And I will answer it, but before, let me circle back and ask you what. All right, well, you were talking about Nelly Korda, and she doesn't necessarily need to do anything different on course.
On course.
What if I asked you, hey, why is Nelly Korda great? And I promise I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but why is Nelly Korda great? How easy? What is your answer, and how easy of an answer is that for you? I'll
answer the second part first. It's not an easy answer to describe to someone else. Nelly's one of the longest hitters on tour. Nelly has she's statistically still the second best scoring average on tour. Again, a lot of stuff that's real boring to share with someone immediately, right?
When you say, all right, I'm going to drill in here. When you say she's one of the longest hitters on tour, that's, hey, I'm new to the LPGA. What does that mean? What does that mean? What I'm driving at is, I think one of the critical things that separates the PGA Tour from the LPGA Tour is every PGA Tour event has ShotLink data available. And the data you get through ShotLink essentially tells, I'm on the PGA Tour website right now, and putting, okay? I can look at putting from 5 to 10 feet, putting from 10 to 15 feet. I can break down putts from essentially any distance I want and see how the men perform, right? And it's the same with like any shot, any club, any shot, approach from 160 yards. The LPGA Tour does not have ShotLink data. And so what the LPGA Tour does not have, that there just aren't the statistics that the PGA Tour has, which when we're sitting here talking about like, why is Nelly great? Well, she's good. She top tens a lot. She's pretty long. You just can't contextualize the actual performance like we can on the men's side. And I think that's a big, big, big disadvantage to the women's game, because you can't tell stories. You can't tell people this is what makes Nelly Korda great. Her ability to do this specific thing relative to her peers, let alone, maybe it's her ability. I'm just making this up, but let's say her proximity to the hole from 100 yards, right? There's no reason why we couldn't compare, Lydia Ko, Nelly Korda against Rory McIlroy. I get that they're different courses.
Sure.
But in a 100-yard wedge shot, we should be able to tell a story of like, hey, Lydia Ko is truly world-class. This is her proximity. This is how it stacks up against her LPGA peers. This is even how it stacks up against the best in the men's game. We can't do that. And I think until the stats are available to really be able to tell stories and to tell people what makes these women great, it's going to be an uphill fight, because
that's a great point.
There's only so much, she's good. She top 10 this, her driving distance is this. I should have put that in my last response, but we need ShotLink data for every tournament on the women's side.
I'll send you our link later of, I went on a bit of a rant a couple months ago on stats, like going on ESPN's app and you can't even see anything beyond the top 10. Like you can't even expand the box to see all 140 golfers or whatever. I mean, caddies are still self-reporting. Like we're so far away. It's getting better, right? Hopefully it does this year with TrackMan's investment. But it's a really good point. Like I always think about the game of man, if I could just build the perfect golfer using any LPGA players, who's the best putter, I'm not sure I could actively find that information and rely on it. Right. Like if Tom asked me today, who's the best putter, I'd be like, well, like historically people would say like NB or something, but like I don't really like know her stats. I just know like NB made big putts when it mattered,
yeah. Which is a hindrance, right? Because that is important. That, so much of our PGA Tour discussions are framed around our ability to find stats that tell the actual story of how the guys perform, where they're, world class, where they're not world class. And so I think that's big. You asked me though about investment and, outside companies and how that stands today. I think I'll go back to maybe when I first was jumping in 2018, 2019, there was a fervor of companies to want to get involved in women's sports. I think women's sports, as we've seen with the WNBA, with soccer, with a lot of things, it was an under invested market. There is a lot of opportunity. I think one thing that I've been like just a little maybe disappointed in is how I'll phrase it, is we've seen a lot of investment into the women's game. But I think a lot of it is into purses and money available. And listen, I think there had to be some raising of the purses. And I think especially at national opens or, like the KPMG Women's PGA Championship, these national organizations that hold men's tournament, they hold women's tournaments, like the prize money should be, if not the same, it should be very close. So we did need to increase purses in places. Having said that, I think some of these companies, if I were Commissioner Kessler, or if I were like the czar of women's golf, and there comes a point where it's like, as a fan, okay, what's the difference between playing for 3 million and 4 million? That doesn't affect my fandom whatsoever, right? So I wish there was more of a push to direct some of this corporate money into, hey, will you sponsor ShotLink for your tournament? Will you do this for your tournament? What can we do with dollars that make the product for the fans better, which in theory would then grow the league? It's almost like investing in this area. Trust us, players. It's going to grow the league and it's going to grow purses in the longer run for you. I just feel like we're a little bit like we're raising purses, but we're not doing much to increase the fan experience. And I think we're putting the cart a little bit before the horse in that respect.
I think that's well said. All right, let's have some fun here. Not that we haven't been so
Thank
far.
God. Oh, you guys are making me think.
I'm making. It's not an easy job being the LPGA czar, but you're doing a great job. I'll be on your cabinet anytime if you want to start a board of directors for the LPGA's idea committee. We're here. Okay, so let's start here. Have you had any pinch me moments specifically covering the LPGA?
Yeah. Yes. First one, if you'll allow me to plug a piece of content we did.
Please.
We embedded with, I'm going to have the year wrong. I think it was after, I kind of used COVID as was it before COVID or after COVID? I think it was maybe right before. Anyway, we did a week in the life. We embedded with Madeline Sackstrom for an event at Lake Nona. We essentially spent the week with her. We followed her practice rounds at home, off the course, and it culminated. She was fighting to make the cut on Friday. And, we're thinking we've put together this big video. If she goes out and misses the cut, like, it's still a good video, but it's a little bit of a letdown finish. Sure. And she, on the 18th hole of the day for her, needing birdie, she was a greenside bunker and ends up pitching in from the bunker for birdie. We got two cameras around the green and we just all look at each other like, holy shit, did she just do that? Which for us, it was a huge deal because now we get, 2 more days. We can kind of tell the story of her advancing onto the weekend. That was the first one. And that was kind of more personal. You mentioned I've gotten to do some radio for AIG Women's Open. I just feel incredibly underqualified, but yet like really blessed to be able to do that. And I think several pinch me moments, like just getting to walk the course and to call golf on the radio in and of itself is amazing. But I go back to the Open at the Old Course 2024 and coming down the stretch on Sunday afternoon. I believe you had 5 former world number ones all tied for the lead. Maybe it was 4. It was Lydia, it was Nelly, it was Lilia Vu, it was Jie Shin. Was there a 5th? Maybe it was just those 4. At the Old Course, it just was like, this is as good as golf gets. You know, watching Lydia Ko hit that 3-wood into the road hole green in the driving rain when she absolutely had to have it. I'm just like, this is as good as it gets. This is as fun as tournament golf gets. So that was a pinch me moment. Just getting to be at the okay, one more if you'll allow me.
Yeah.
The Solheim Cup we went to at Inverness in Toledo, because we had built up this relationship with Madeline, who was on the team. Team Europe wins their first victory on American soil in a little bit. They're going to the team party. Madeline goes, "Hey, why don't you guys come in to the Team Europe party?" So we walk in. It's a huge party going. They got the music. They got a dance floor. They're passing around the actual Solheim Cup with alcohol in it. You know, people are taking swigs out of it. Dame Laura Davies is over here on a pool table. Solly and I play Laura Davies in a game of pool. Like, that was probably the pinch me moment of pinch me moments.
Yeah, that wins. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man,
do you find yourself rooting for players that you've become personally friendly with?
Oh, hell yeah.
You're such a homer now.
Unabashed homer. Yeah, unabashed homer.
Who's the short list these days? Like, who you know what? Let me spin this a little bit for our audience.
Okay. All right.
We know you got your young hitters, Elsie and Madeline. Who, as we're looking at 2026, who should our fans be excited to watch? Like, hey, tune in and watch them because they're, for whatever reason you cite.
Yeah. Madeline and Lauren, as you say, are just, we're close to them personally. So I absolutely root for them. Gosh, there are so many, but I'll start at Gino, right? She just is exceptional. Her consistency, no weakness in her game. I am a fan of Gino, and I think you could do a lot worse than starting right there. I'll say Miyu Yamashita is like maybe 5 foot. I think her Wikipedia lists her at 4'11". God, the performance she had at Porthcawl last year, and just her bulldog mentality really, really won me over as a fan. Those are more obvious names. Let me give you some that are maybe this is a name that everybody probably will know listening to your podcast, but Charlie Hall is
my girl.
A ton of fun.
I named my daughter after her.
I love it. I mean, she just oozes personality. She's so unique. She's such herself. I think she's a wonderful personality. I'm a big fan of Angel Yin. I think she is quirky and goofy. She's got a very powerful game, but when she has her putter going, it's this mixture of like power, but finesse and touch. I think she's a lot of fun. Yulimi No is somebody that I've really found myself rooting for. Kind of burst onto the scene several years ago out of nowhere. Did not go to college, earned her card when she was, I think, maybe 18, 19 years old. Had a decent first year or two, and then went in the wilderness, lost her card. She's back now as, I want to say maybe 24, 25 years old. She's got a long putter, which is pretty rare on the women's game. She fights her putting, but man, she's got a gorgeous golf swing. Hits the ball really, really well with her driver and her irons. Going down the list, I know you guys are friendly with Gabby Ruffles. She's been on your show. She's somebody that we've just kind of gotten to know. Her story is pretty incredible. Relatively late to golf, was a very good tennis player. Decided to pursue golf and now is an LPGA golfer. I mean, I could name it. There's a German girl, and I say girl, I think she's 19 or 20, that just earned her LPGA Tour card for the 2026 season. Helen Bream, who I think is like 6'2", 6'3", hits the ball a mile, a little raw in her game, but
perfect.
Just tons of potential. And then the other one that I've always, this is kind of out of nowhere, but there is a Filipino player, Bianca Pagdinanan, who is, I think, probably the longest player on the LPGA Tour. She's always kind of fringe, though. Will she keep her card? Will she not? She has not won yet on tour. But if you're just going out to a tournament in person and Bianca's playing, you could do a lot worse than following her for 9 holes or 18 holes. She hits the ball. She hits the shit out of the ball.
Man.
So those are a bunch.
Good ones.
I feel like I could go on for like 20 minutes just naming.
But that's the best part,
favorites.
right? Is there's no shortage of like good personalities and good games out there. I'm one of my new favorites right now is Austin Kim. I love watching Austin Kim play golf. She's been highly entertaining. Okay.
She had a really nice 2025.
We're going to get you out of here. A couple more, Randy. You're looking at the major slate this year, which you've talked about good golf courses. We have been on a good heater here recently of the LPGA visiting really good sites and France every year, right? As you look at going to Riviera, Hazeltine, Memorial Park for the first time, I'm going to give you get to pick one player to win one specific major. You get to wave your magic wand. If you could have one player win one of these 5 majors, who you picking and at what tournament do you want to see it happen?
Okay. I assume we'll go in order here. So the Chevron is the first one. I said earlier, Gino would be a good one just to kind of plant the flag. Do I want that? Now, you know what? I'll switch gears a little bit there. I'll go Nelly Korda at Chevron.
Good. Okay.
For the kind of redemptive, like, hey, 2025 was a lost year, but I'm putting everybody on notice that 2026 is going to be different. So I think that would be maybe the best tone setter for the LPGA as a whole.
Okay. All right, let's go to Riv.
Riv. This might be the golf tournament anywhere that I'm most excited for. I love Riv. Kudos to the U.S. Women's Open, the USGA and the RNA specifically have gotten the. I think the U.S. Women's Open and I think the Women's Open are kind of in a class by themselves as majors, just because of the world-class venues. All right. All that being said, I'm going to come back and do Gino at Riv.
Okay.
Excellent course. My favorite tournament. World number 1. If Nelly and Gino win the first 2 majors, I think it sets it up for a hell of a back half of 2026.
Okay. End of June, we're at the KPMG Women's PGA at Hazeltine.
Hazeltine. Okay. Now I can't pick Nelly or Gino again.
Sure you can. You're the waving your magic wand. You can have a sweep if you want, man.
Give him a Grand Slam. Why not?
I know.
Grand Slam would do.
I would come back and say Gino, kind of consolidating power.
Ooh,
breaks through with one major. The thing about the U.S. Women's Open, the KPMG, I guess they're a little bit more spread out this year, beginning of June, end of June. But I feel like, if Gino's kind of playing as good as she can to win the U.S. Women's Open, let's give her the KPMG, give her that second major straight away.
Okay, we take a week off, and then we're right back into another major at the Evian.
The Evian, God. I've come full circle on the Evian. I have to admit, it wasn't a really well-researched take, but I didn't like the Evian. The course is goofy. The broadcast does not feel like a major.
But it has good winners, man.
But it has good winners, and the golf course does yield birdies, eagles down the stretch. Who would be a good winner here? I'm thinking we got to give it maybe to a Japanese woman. I'm going to take all chalk. Let's give it to Yamashita.
Oh, just go. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then probably, I would guess, maybe your favorite tournament or second favorite tournament, the AIG Women's. Are you going to Royal Lytham this year?
This falls into the bucket of I hope so. With a new baby on the way, I feel like we simply don't know what life is going to hold. But assuming everything's good on the home front, yes, I do hope to be at the AIG again. We've gotten close 2 of the last 3 years. I just think Charlie Hall needs to win a major, and it should happen somewhere in England. So I'm going to give this one to Charlie Hall.
Oh man, from your lips to God's ears, man. That's the one, man. Give me that.
For that one.
It's so much fun. So I was at Walton Heath a few years, 23 when Charlie was right in it, and then last year at Porthcawl, like being on the ground, there just is a buzz. Like Charlie is somebody that like really, especially around her home fans, home country, there's a real buzz in the air. It's awesome. So yeah, if Charlie could be in contention and win one, it's going to be a party. It'd be fun.
Come on, Charlie. All right, Tom, get us out of here on a hoops question.
All right. Well, so for the past 5 years, I've been coaching my son at baseball. I coached my daughter at soccer. And Mark always stops me and goes, "Why would you put yourself through that? Why are you so involved in youth sports?" And I think that you, Big Randy, would be the perfect person to finally push Mark over the edge. His daughter's approaching that age of wanting to play like a first kick soccer or something like that. Could you please explain to him how fun it is to coach youth sports?
Oh, I will. Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Why you got to lay out why you are against coaching youth sports. I want to hear that first.
It won't come as a surprise to you. So first and foremost, the parents. I have no desire.
Parents are the worst part of everything.
Okay, right? And we are those that I just have no. I had a great set of parents that sat in the bleachers and were so excited to watch me play ball, never mouthed off to anybody and brought snacks. I played sports my whole life, but never were they an active part of the game, appropriately so. So again, I'm jaded with how I was raised. And conversely, there were those kids on the team whose dad was riding the ump. I played third base and shortstop my whole life, and I just was watching parents on the right side of the field behind the dugout running their mouth. So that's the first thing. There's a big people like Tom would say, hey, when you see what the alternatives are to who's coaching your kid, if it's not you,
I was going to cite that.
I can say that might be the thing that at least would make me consider it. But I want to enjoy my kids play sports, and I'd be afraid what my relationship with my kid, because you've coached, but you've never thought about it in the lens of you now are going to have your own kid. That's the main reasoning right there.
Okay. You're not wrong. You feel how you feel. The parents are the worst. I would say, and you're right, I've spent 5 years coaching freshman basketball and assisting varsity basketball teams. When it comes to youth sports, I absolutely want to one day be involved. I think basketball, especially, just because it's my love. Yeah, I think the best coaches I had growing up made the sport fun, and so I think. Tom, to your point, like I trust myself to bring that overall mission to youth sports, especially. And if I can make this fun for this group of kids, then I don't care what else happens. Like that's the overarching goal, right? And so if I have that goal, I trust myself. Maybe a different parent comes in with a different mindset and it's not a good experience. So that's where I would start. I think as I get older and away from both coaching and playing, I miss the competition, right? Like youth sports don't matter. We know that, but there's still something fun about coaching up a group of kids and I think seeing the development from day one to the end of the season, and if you're fortunate enough, to spend several seasons with largely the same group of kids, it is really, really rewarding to watch growth, not only like in personal skills, but the team itself. And you just build bonds with the people that you coach. It's a good excuse to go spend an hour or two a week in practice, and then the games that weekend, you celebrate the wins and you hate the losses, and you remind yourself this is youth sports and it doesn't matter, but it's kind of the only outlet you have anymore a bit, Tom. I think we're all searching for that low stakes competitive outlet where, we can compete against somebody. So that would be my, I don't know. That's my best, plea for Mark to get involved. Tom, do you
We will-
disagree, or
Oh no,
does that
I think that was
resonate
all
with
well
you?
said. I mean, the amount of phone calls I've received from the school principal about finding wine bottles in the dugout and stuff like that. That's always kind of a new adventure every week. But it's a lot of fun. Yeah. Don't Mark, you and I can start a different podcast about that whole thing. The amount of fun that it does bring, and I mean, you do see how just the gradual improvements throughout the season of these kids who had never played soccer, who had never played baseball before, and now they're throwing strikes and they're stopping wild pitches and stuff like that. That is endlessly rewarding. So being able to do that and just seeing all the kids saying, "I can't wait to sign up for next season," that always puts a smile on my face. I'm sure Mark wants to just, set up a picnic blanket, let somebody else coach his kid while he's riding his rollerblades around the outfield or something like that.
Now we're talking. Now we're
I
talking.
shouldn't have said
Now
that.
we've
I'm
come
persuading
full
you now.
circle.
Yeah, now way to bring us home, Tom. Well, Randy, we cannot thank you enough for joining us. This has been a blast. You've been so generous with your time. For those of you listeners, if you're enjoying what you're hearing here, go. If you're not already, I have to imagine you all are already, but if you're not, please subscribe to No Laying Up and the Trap Draw. That it is wildly entertaining, especially when Randy and TC get on a heater together. But Randy, thank you so much. Hopefully we get to do this again and talk LPGA, check in, but you've been so gracious with your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Real honor. And again, congrats on getting the podcast up and building the consistency. That is no easy thing. Trust me. So kudos and thank you guys.